feel being in every movie this year?
I'm actually in the Hunger Games and the Avengers as well.
Yes, I know.
I'm in every movie. I don't feel like I'm in every movie, but I'm glad to feel like you guys do.
Well, it is the year of DUPLASS, so.
I think maybe in this room it might be, but not in all rooms. To the world of people who care about independent film, I'll take it.
So what is it about the marriage of you and Lynn Shelton that is so magical?
I think that there's just weird alchemy. You never know why you fit with certain people. But if I had to define it, I would say Lynn is a very open director, and she's very open to collaborating, and she's not threatened by having an actor who creatively contributes. And likewise, Lynn and I share such a similar sensibilities and love of our characters, and particularly love of flawed characters, that we're never at odds about what we want to see happen in the films. So it just kind of works.
I'm just curious at the end of the movie, without giving anything away, did you guys have some idea, or did you agree on idea of what happens once it goes to black?
Well, we shot multiple versions at the end of the film, and we also shot some different tags. And it's kind of my belief that, when you're making a film in 12 days, or honestly, if you're making any film, that having different options for your ending can only help you when you come to test the film. And so this was the one that surprisingly people responded to the most. But we had lots of ways we could have done it.
You could have put the other scene at the end of the credits and set up for a sequel.
Absolutely. But that would have ruined the sequel.
Could have been an indie franchise. That
Exactly.
First.
Franchises, that's what everybody's about these days, right?
When you first realized you were going to be a dad, and the other two ladies were discussing it, that look on your face, man, where did you go to get that look? Because that really hit me.
Yeah.
It was real.
I can't talk about that, 'cause that's a pretty big spoiler for the movie. But I will just say that in terms of what I brought to the character and what I thought I could bring there was just this sense of what would a normal person do in this situation, and I tried to make Jack feel like a guy who's kind of fucked up but feels a little bit like everybody else, and so him reacting to all these crazy things that happen to the movie is not dissimilar from how I would have reacted.
Mark, your initial response when you read the script was what?
Well, actually, I brought the concept of the film to Lynn. It was a concept of the movie my brother and I had, and the concept was a guy is down on his luck, and he's lost his brother, and he's best friends with this girl, and she sends him to her family vacation getaway to have him get his life together, and when he gets there, he meets her mother, and a bunch of weird shit happens. And Lynn was like, great, but let's make it a sister, because I have some casting ideas that could work, and so I said, great, and so it wasn't that I read a script, it was more that we built a movie together. And it's the film was shot from a treatment, so there was no traditional script, and all the dialogue is improvised.
So why would you not keep a project like this for you and Jay?
Well, I mean, honestly, I have about, probably like 100 different movie ideas that, well, I mean, not all of them are any good. And, Jay and I are not going to make all of them, and I thought this movie should be dramatic but also funny, and I don't think Jay and I would have derived that much comedy from a Dead Brother movie. So.
Do you relate the collaboration when it comes to just putting stuff behind the scenes together? Is that more your forte these days? And when you go in front of it, is that easier for you these days, would you say?
It's all one and the same, I mean, they're not always cut and dry. I mean, I'm a producer on this movie, so there is some behind the scenes in terms of curating how it's put together, but I'm also in front of the camera. So whether it's easier or not really has to do with the quality of the people you're involved with. If you're having a good time and you can giggle, then you're going to have an easy time. And even if it's a quote-unquote passion project where it's your favorite movie in the whole world, the best script, the best actors, if you have one extreme asshole on that set, it can ruin the whole thing. So it's really important to curate the right kind of people, particularly for this movie. We're all going to be living together on an island, and, got to get nice people.
Who's potentially a spoiler? A producer? Or
what's that?
Another writer? Who's the spoiler? Who's the asshole on on the set? What is, how
On
is
this
that
set, there were
possible?
no assholes, and we'd worked with everybody before except for Emily and Rose, and we carefully ferreted them out and got good reviews on them.
On the other occasions, though, when has that happened?
It has happened to me quite a bit, but I can't really name names.
This is the
That
first
was
time I've
terrible.
seen you without a blue-collar shaggy haircut. You have a fine haircut today.
Yeah.
Can you explain it?
Do you like my hair?
I like your hair
Is it
today.
fine? Is it fine? Well, I did a couple of movie projects in the last 3 or 4 months, and some of them required short hair. Also, I have a 7-week-old daughter who likes to pull on things. So there's that. It's hot. It's the summer. I really like that, having short hair. It's been a confluence of different events.
I was gonna ask you a follow-up question. When it comes to raising money for a project like this, something that's true to your heart, how difficult is that for you these days when you have to put on a producer's hat and then go and try to find that? Is it?
Different movies are hard and different movies are easy. You know, for instance, I just raised money for one of my best friends to direct his first movie that is about a demon that lives inside of someone's ass and comes out and terrorizes people. And it's very funny and very dark and very hard to raise money for, because that's an expensive, weird movie. For a movie like Your Sister's Sister, that is a cheaply made movie with 2 very big movie stars in it, then you have people beating down your door to be the investors of the film because they know it'll make money. And in the event of a movie like Black Rock, which I wrote and produced for my wife to direct, which stars her and Kate Bosworth and Lake Bell, that was a movie that, you know, we knew would do really well. So, you know, we paid for the whole thing because we wanted the ownership. So it all depends on the project, you know, where you want to assume the risk.
Did that have anything to do with you shooting in Toronto in terms of the financial incentives? or-
This film?
Yeah.
This was shot off the coast of Washington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, was Hannah gay to begin with, or did that just kind of evolve as you guys were going through the process?
No, as we discussed the movie, we always liked the idea that Hannah would be gay. And I think when you watch the first scene between me and Hannah in the film, there's something really fun about this quote-unquote safe flirtation that can happen between a man and a woman when one of them is gay, because you get to kind of say whatever you want because sex is off the table, and it creates a really interesting dynamic.
And yet sex is on the table, sort of.
Might be. Yeah.
Now, you're a veteran of improv. Most of your projects and your performances have been such. Emily's had a little bit. Rosemary comes in from a very scripted, strict environment. How did you go about working with her? Because Lynn I just talked to Lynn and she called you the room leader.
Right.
So how do you bring somebody like Rosemary and get her to loosen up and come into this mix?
I mean, honestly, I would love to take the credit for like having curated her performance or led her into it. She was, and I'm not just saying this for press purposes, she was good instantly. She was a fan of Hump Day. We talked to her ahead of time about the process. She was ready to come in and improvise, ready to fall on her face, try things that didn't work. And our first scene that we shot together was that first all-night scene where we're drinking. And she was just great instantly. And I believe that a lot of people can do this kind of work as long as one person in the scene has the narrative in mind, and that's usually me, making sure we're on track, you know. Then really all that's required is listen really well to your partner and be open to wherever it's going to go, and make sure you know the various story points you're trying to hit, you know. And then if you're a good actor and you like weird fucked up people, you'll be great.
Did you use, in other words, besides improvising, did you actually rehearse a little bit and then shoot it, or just
No,
kept shooting it?
there's no rehearsal period, and I believe in not rehearsing for improvised films just because, you know, that element of surprise only comes once, and if you get it in the rehearsal, you'll lose it. You know, there's a fantastic moment in the film where Rosemary reminds Emily of in a very embarrassing instance from her youth, and Emily didn't know that was coming. You know, Rose made that up on her own, and you can see the reaction on her face is very genuine. You know, I believe that can't be performed. And what if that had happened in rehearsal? Miss it.
That same scene, backing it up a little bit, when you're kind of messing around with Emily, talking about all the previous boyfriends, we learned more about like her father and stuff.
Mhm.
So that, I mean, you just were like rattling off skinny jean. This guy skinny.
My motivation in that scene was to draw a parallel between Emily and her father as regards to dating, and to charm Rose and have her laugh at me and find me funny before we dropped the bomb on her about what we did to the pancakes. You know, that's the structure of how these scenes work. So how I chose to say that was up to me, you know, and I just started going on this skinny jeans rant. It just seemed, I used to play in indie rock bands and I was that dude, and I just find them really funny and laugh at myself when I look at pictures of myself now. And
so do you already have a lot of it in your head, knowing like I kind of want to go this direction?
Sometimes I do a little preparation for the big emotional scenes. I do, like in Hump Day, I tell this story about a video store clerk and my strained relationship with him. Like I prepared that ahead of time. And Your Sister's Sister, when I come back to see the girls after we've had kind of a big confrontation, that's something I prepared, you know, ahead of time. But sometimes we just kind of wing, and that can be just as good.
The title's kind of confusing for me because the sister's sister,
Right.
there's somebody's missing in there.
Right. I think that's part of the charm of the title and what Lynn was going for with it is, you know, what you just did is you kind of looked up and you started thinking about it. And I think that's what that title goes for, is so that you can see the poster, walk away, and still think about it for a little bit longer.
What do you like about working with Lynn?
I think she's a fantastic filmmaker. She's a really great student of the human condition. You know, she, most importantly, she just loves her characters, and she loves screwed up people, and she loves rooting for them. And you know, you'll be in a dinner conversation with Lynn, and she'll be talking to someone that says, you know, oh my God, I've broken up with my last 5 boyfriends, and then I slept with the ex-boyfriend while I was dating the new one. And while someone else is appalled, Lynn is laughing hysterically and totally in love with this person, you know, and that quality is just very unique.
Now, having worked with Lynn before, how has she evolved as a director since Hump Day?
I think the
in your
visual
eyes?
development is the biggest thing, you know. Lynn, in particular with this film, said, you know, I want to try and get some poetry and some visual elegance into this film, you know, and so by setting it on this island and getting all those nice wide shots and incorporating the score, I think she, you know, expanded the film from just close-ups and interpersonal dynamics into something a little, you know, just a little more visual.
Do you have any personal experiences in terms of relationships with women that they're either their sister was also attractive, or you just did not get along with them at all, or?
Good question. I don't really think so. I think that this film is almost more wish fulfillment for me because I'm like a, you know, kind of a good Catholic boy, and I've been a serial monogamist my whole life. So being Jack and that level of buffoonery is very fun for me because I don't know, I'm too conservative in some ways to do that stuff.
See, this is kind of, you get to live out that fantasy.
You got it.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
Now, you've got DUPLASS coming out, and it's going to be at LA Film Festival. How exciting is it for you, even now? You know, you're a festival darling with your films. How exciting is it to have it opening in LA of all places?
I mean, festivals have created our careers to a large degree. We got started making these little tiny movies on no budgets, and they would get bought out of festivals and get good reviews out of festivals. That's where we got our agents, you know. So I think the DUPLASS Pentathlon in particular represents the last truly micro-budgeted film we made before we made Cyrus and Jeff Who Lives at Home. And it's really fun for me to kind of take a look at myself when I was making films, you know, run around like idiots with my friends, you know, before we almost knew exactly what we were doing. It's got a really nice scrappy quality to it that's in the body of almost a big broad comedy. You know, like DUPLASS could have been made with Will Ferrell as a $50 million movie. You know, you can see the bones of it, but I like that it was made cheaply. It's got a nice quality.
Will you keep making some micro-budget films?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, I think if I look at the careers of all my heroes, you watch them ebb and flow in popularity and in their ability to make movies in the studio system. And I'm really lucky that I get to make movies like Cyrus and Jeff Who Lives at Home with good budgets now, but I can easily foresee a day where they say no. And I like knowing that I can always go off and make them on my own. So I think we'll always have those, you know, in our our back pocket ready to go. And honestly, you know, sometimes movies are supposed to be made cheaply. You know, like if you don't need a lot of money, then don't do it for a lot of money.
What kind of independent films were you watching growing up, and who did you aspire to, and when did you first realize, I want to make these kind of movies?
Yeah, I think growing up, we didn't watch a lot of independent films. Like when I was very young, we watched a lot of adult dramas because that's what was being programmed on HBO. You know, during the day in 1984, when I was growing up, it was Kramer versus Kramer, and then it was Annie Hall, and then it was Sophie's Choice, and then you know it was Ordinary People, and I was watching all these weird adult dramas as a 7-year-old, and it influenced a lot of how I make movies, just in terms of attention to personal or interpersonal dynamics. But then it was really Richard Linklater, I think, when I saw him like doing a Q&A for Slacker in the early 90s, and I was still a teenager. And I was like, this guy's wearing jeans and a ratty t-shirt and sneakers, and he looks like me. Is it possible that I could be a filmmaker? Like, I don't have to look like Truffaut to like make a movie. And he, you know, he felt like me, and he kind of paved the way for me.
Nowadays, a lot of major award-winning actors are doing small independent scripts because they love the writing. So when you write something, do you say to yourself it's a possibility that you could get a major name if they like what they see?
You know, I think that the goal is to make each project for what it's appropriate for. You know, and the goal with Your Sister's Sister was to make a very small, intimate film with some recognizable faces so that we could get it to a larger audience. You know, that was exciting to us. And I think that with other movies, you know, it's exciting to make a big movie that maybe don't have a lot of names and faces in them, and anonymity can be important to movies. So it all depends on the budget and the scope, you know. But I think it's really important that you serve your creative spirit first, more than trying to serve, you know, getting a movie star in your movie.
How about when you put on your producer's hat? Some of that is what you just said of
Mhm.
that, but what will you take it beyond that scope when it comes to just looking at that producer? What's most important?
I never look at something as just a producer. I think it's the difference. You know, I mean, it's always, I don't separate those things. You know, but when I'm thinking of, you know, maybe just in terms of financials, I would just say that I try not to make movies that I feel like are at a great risk for not making their money back. And I just believe in being financially conservative. For instance, a movie like Jeff Who Lives at Home, the day we went into production in that movie, we made a profit. And that's because a movie with Jason Segel, Ed Helms, and Susan Sarandon at that budget with the word comedy on it could never lose money. And so that allows me to keep working in the business because I won't lose people money.
And that's kind of where IFC comes in, which is why I like IFC.
IFC's great. You know, they have a lot of sustainable models, and they release movies in different platforms. And you know, sometimes weird little documentaries, you shouldn't spend $10 million promoting them because they're not going to make it back. Put it on VOD, release it in New York and LA, make $500,000 profit, get great reviews, and walk away. And that's okay.
Now, as a producer, director, and working with micro budget and being really one of the pros at it, what kind of seriously, what kind of cameras do you think for wannabe micro budget filmmakers? What do you think is the best thing?
Well, there's a couple of
be
things.
looking at now?
A couple of things I recommend. You know, I mean, the first thing I always recommend is try to find a great cinematographer who owns a camera, who's got a few weeks off, who's willing to lend themselves and their camera to you for free, and then tell them visually, I'm going to put this movie in your hands. That movie you've been wanting to make in your own way, this is yours, but I'm using your camera for free. That's the best way to do it. You find somebody who owns a Red camera, who owns an Arri Alexa, you know, that's what you want. That being said, if your movie is pretty static and doesn't have a lot of crazy motion in it, I think the 5D and the 7D cameras are great. If you got an action film, don't do it because it's going to blur and it's not going to work out for you. There's a camera that Sony makes, the F3, that's a fantastic mid-range camera. I think those are good for those kind of $500,000 movies, you know. And then, you know, there's nothing wrong with, you know, shooting on the Panasonic cameras, the HVX 200. Those are, you can buy those used for $1,000 now, and they're great cameras. I made Baghead on that camera and blew it up to 35 millimeter. It looks fantastic. You know, we are just severely blessed, those of us who are making movies after 2003, with fantastic digital technology. There's no excuse now for, not making a movie.
Or making one that looks bad.
Yeah, you can.
Your TV series, The League.
Yes.
I was wondering, where do you shoot it, and do you ever find yourself drained or physically exhausted going back and forth between TV and your movie projects?
Not really. The League is very light lifting. There's very little emotional content to the show. It's a big joke bag, and so it's mostly just fun. So that's kind of like farting around with your friends as opposed to work. And we shoot it all in LA, different places, downtown, Valley, and I would say that I'm on an ensemble show, so I'm working 3 to 4 days out of the week, but I also get a couple hours off every day in my trailer, so I can do work emails and rewrites and producing calls and things like that. And it's kind of the greatest job ever. I mean, it's the greatest mortgage payer that's ever existed.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I miss you. I miss my friend.
Oh, this is that moment, isn't it? This is
your intervention. Whatever you think is helping you, I have a responsibility as your friend to tell you that it's not.
Just tell me what to do.
You know that nice red bicycle that you have?
Yes.
You're going to dust off old red, and you're going to get on a ferry. I'm sending you to my dad's place. There's no TV, there's no internet, there's nothing. It's just you.
Do they have forks?
It's just you, and we have a couple of forks, yeah.
I might need to stab myself in the face.
Sorry. I think I have the wrong house, and I... Hey, you're Hannah. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm Iris's friend Jack.
You're on an island, it's 3 in.the morning, and you're drinking by yourself. What's going on?
I just walked out on a 7-year relationship.
Whoa.
Hence the tequila.
What are you gonna say? Not so terrible to have a drinking buddy. Going down, getting weird.
Dad!
What are you doing here?
Did you meet my sister? I've been wanting you to meet
I did. We met last night.
I know, it's crazy. Why are you, what are you doing here? You don't think she'd be upset if you told her we had sex?
Why?
Because she's your sister. I'm her best friend, and it's weird.
Do you have a thing for my sister?
I do not have a thing for your sister.
On my way back home. Do you like Jack?
I don't know. He seems like a nice guy.
I think I'm in love with him.
You're right. It's better if she's a no.
It's the first time I've seen you look really happy in a long time. I just feel like I should tell him. What's the matter? Why are you being so quiet?
I have to tell you something.
Why? Why did it have to be him?
I really think your face is going to annoy me right now.
My face always annoys you.
On my way back